it's strange. I've always felt that there is a story to Lahore, and it's a story I want to be part of. It's funny because I live in London now, and there's clearly many stories that come from London, and I'm trying to write a novel set in London. And my mind keeps returning to Lahore. It's as though there's part of me in my imagination that is always drawn to that place. And when I wrote Maud Smoke, I was trying to do something in a way similar to what I think Daniyal has done, which is map out something I hadn't seen mapped out in fiction. In this case, young, urban, pot-smoking, adulterous, 20-something Lahoris. And that's sort of where that comes from. And the fact that it's pungent, as you say,
is this part of Write What You Know, Mohsin?
No comment on that one. I think yes. I won't claim to be my protagonist, who is a man who winds up, potentially killing a boy, becoming a heroin addict, and sleeping with his best friend's wife. But that said, one has seen things like that, and but it's fictionally, and I've written about other places as well. Fictionally, it's so rich. It's rich because you haven't seen it mined fully. It's rich because you're from there. And for me, it's rich, and I'd love to hear what Daniyal thinks about this, but for me, it's also rich because although I feel very comfortable and of it, part of me is also not of it, and so therefore I'm always looking at it from a slightly skewed perspective as an insider who's also been kind of an outsider.
That's absolutely right, Mohsin. I mean, I think what's interesting about this, this sort of group of writers to which we more or less belong, Muhammad Hanif and Kamal Shamsi and Nadeem Aslam and others, is that they're all people who are sort of straddling these two worlds. And obviously there's something very rich about that. And perhaps part of this is that you look at it from the outside, while belonging to it, you look at it from the outside. You're not blinded to it by familiarity. And probably it's also partly about nostalgia that you feel for it when you're away, and even in a way when you're there, because you never can quite grasp it. It's always slightly outside your reach. You'll never entirely belong to it. So certainly that's a big factor in my sort of attraction to writing these stories.
You said in one of your interviews, I read this thing that it was a comment, something to the effect of you were capturing in your story something that was potentially disappearing. And, yeah.
That's absolutely right. I mean, as I say, nostalgia is one of the main motivators for writers, and that can take the form of the nostalgia for the thing you see is disappearing. And I think this world is disappearing, the one I'm describing, which is this sort of feudal world. And I mean, you and I both know these sort of elderly gentlemen who play bridge and live in Lahore and sort of are gradually selling off their lands, which is certainly one of the main characters in my book, is that sort of person. And I jokingly say that people like you and me, we're sort of IDPs, internally displaced people, except we're sort of really internally displaced. We're displaced inside of ourselves, and I think that's for us that's a rich position somehow.